Hello everybody, it's Kirsty and this is the chart that I rectified for Letecia Stauch. It's her birth date, but we don't have a time, so I put together what I do to rectify a chart, and this appears to be the best one that I can come up with using various different techniques, and also taking into account the way she looks, because that is very important here, this rising sign area, how she looks. Now I have here her as a Cancer rising, and a lot of people that know how people look and their star signs, or as I know it as their zodiac, but it's a thing where a lot of people do know what people look like through their signs. Some might say, no, she looks like a Scorpion, and I agree, and I actually have a reason for the fact that I don't think she is a Scorpion rising. Now, she has all the characteristics of a Cancerian in terms of her size, voluptuousness, being fairly pretty. Now, I know people are going to say, well, no, she's not. Well, the truth is, she was actually quite an attractive looking lady. When this occurred, something happened, and people that watched it will notice her eyes had gotten really sunken. She appeared more scorpionic or different by the day. Her face was changing. The dogs agreed with me there. So as she was getting more caught out and the lies were being undiscovered and everything was happening, and we could visually see that she was falling apart and she started to look very different. This area here, she actually has Pluto and Saturn conjunct in her own natal chart. Now that's the aspect we're going through at the moment that's giving everybody this massive amount of fear. It's in Capricorn at the moment, but hers is in Libra. So this is triggered off in her chart, which is the area of the home, by the way, and massive transformation, and it's attached to this ascendant here. So her looks change with events, and you'll notice that with different people. At 1 minute they'll look nice and kind, and then something will happen and they'll snap and they look like a completely different person. That can be attributed to the chart, and that's what I see in her. So although she doesn't appear outwardly to be a Cancerian rising, what really fits is that Mars is right there on the ascendant line, but in the 12th house, hidden in Cancer. So her anger lays in areas of the home. This Pluto and Saturn in the 4th house, squaring Mars, is very volatile. So regardless of what time she was born, she has this aspect. I have seen it a lot in serial killers and other mass murderers. What helped with the rectification of her birth chart was being able to see that Pluto and Saturn fell in the 4th house of the home, squaring Mars, which is anger, and the ascendant, which is herself and how she appears to the world. So whatever's going on in her home at any given time of her life, if it makes her look stupid or look like an idiot, then she's going to be pissed about it, and she will do what she has to do to make sure that person knows about it. That's this aspect here. So simply that in itself, combined with the other chart of the different times of when he could have been murdered, this shows me here that she had the anger at that time, and it was easy enough for her to do it. Okay, you'll notice here there's Neptune. It's at 26. I'm going to zoom in here. Neptune is at 26 degrees. It's in the 6th house of health. She needs help. Health. Neptune is deception. It's escaping. It's doing all the bad things, and it's not good for your health. Neptune is a deceptive planet. It likes to escape. It likes to pretend. It likes to wear masks. Being in the 6th house shows mental illness, to be blunt, in situations like this when we're having a look. But the thing, not by itself, what compounds it and shows me mental illness is that there's harsh aspects coming from the 3rd house of the logical mind. There's an aspect to Pluto itself at 26 degrees in the 4th house. So when it comes to her home and her feeling stable, she doesn't. Neptune kicks in and there's this instability. Then we have an inconjunct, which is this dotty red line, to Mars here. Now, as I said before, Mars is anger, and her anger's hidden and through resentment in the home. So when something is triggered off, an event, which could have been just this small fire, which was apparent around this area, then it's like the mental illness kicked in. Like, I think she was always mentally ill, but it's like it kicked up a notch. And that's all not just the natal chart, mind you. I'm thinking of the chart over the top of it, so let me grab that. So in my mind I can see 2 charts. This is when she made a Google search for the fire, the candle, and then this is hers on the outside. So that her Pluto and Saturn was so heavily involved in what was going on at that point in time, how she would appear to Al or the rest of the world. So yeah, this is hers on the outside, but I will go into that in another little segment. This is a chart for 12:09 a.m. on the 27th of January 2020. It coincides with the search Letecia Stauch did for "My son burned the carpet, how do I fix it?" And that's on the inside here. I'll open it up. And on the outside is Letecia Stauch's natal chart. So I wanted to see if, firstly, I can see that if he did set the fire, and how this contributes in any way to what happened. Mars in Sagittarius has represented Ganon this entire time throughout the charts, and being in Sagittarius, that is a fire sign. Now, the Mars in the event chart is actually making an opposition to Letecia Stauch's moon in the 8th house. So this actually doesn't just say that it's possible he did start a fire, but that her reaction was very, very over the top as well. She got extremely angry about that fire. The ascendant for that particular search is 0 of Scorpio. Now, Scorpio, when represented by Mars, is very fire-like. This is after the fact, because he's already set the fire, and it maybe was just a candle fell over, and I don't really understand even how it caught on fire, to be honest, because candles put themselves out usually in the situation that she said. But the sun is here on the IC. The sun is very scorching, so it's hot, and on the IC, being the end of the matter, shows that yes, there was a small fire, or there was a fire in the house, and this did happen, but it's also something that triggered the anger in her big time. Like that was it for her. That was like her last straw. Letecia has Mars, so the planet that's angry, opposite Pluto and Saturn, and we're going through a Pluto and Saturn conjunction at the moment, so it brings fear, and this shows me fear and anger at this point in time. So her anger towards Gannon was unfounded and not based on the situation at hand. It was the beginning of what was to be terrifying for Gannon until the end of his life, which is just absolutely dreadful. When I moved this chart forward throughout different various times when he was apparently in the trunk of the vehicle when the police were there, I can't actually say 100% that he died after school. I know that he was really severely injured and put in the vehicle, but I can't be 100% sure that he was actually even dead. I think it was possible that he stayed alive longer than they think, even with those injuries. And the chart even shows that it's possible that he was alive until about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to put that out there. I know it may sound crazy, but that's what the charts show, and I have to go with the timing and my gut. So sadly, I think he was possibly conscious. Hopefully not, but I think he was not deceased until early hours of the morning. So trying to get into Letecia Stauch's head is hard, but it does help when you've got her Google searches. The searches that she makes make no sense. Someone has said it on YouTube, one of my commenters, I think. It's almost as if she's asking for psychological help instead of asking a Google question. Like, parenting should be for people, not one. That's a statement. She's not going to find anything when she Googles that. It doesn't come up with any helpful information at all. Obviously that's the case because it was 1:40:05, and then literally instantly she realised that that was the wrong search to do, and then searched, I'm overdoing all the work for my stepkids and their mum doesn't help. So a few days before, she was obviously pretty pissed. But then immediately she searches mum advice from stepmum. So she's obviously having a meltdown on the 25th here. Like, I'm sick of this, she's sick of it. It's getting to a point where it's like, I can't hack it. You know, why do they do this? And then it's, I wish, well, one day some people will wish they treated you differently. Now, that's really telling. So at 1:54 on the 25th, she typed in, one day some people will wish they treated you differently. And she typed it in twice. And then, why should my husband choose me over family? Find me a rich guy who wants me to take care of his kids. So this is showing me like she needs a family and she needs children, but she doesn't want stepchildren. You know, and she's already realised halfway through this, someone's going to wish they treated me differently. And I don't know whether this is a premeditation to Gannon specifically, or whether it was just, I'm getting so angry that something's going to happen and someone's going to pay. And from the search, it sort of looks like that. It's like parents who put their kids before their nails. You know, obviously, I don't know, maybe his mum got her nails done and that's pissed off Letecia. But then it goes into my son to burn the carpet, so we can start getting specific. will a humidifier help if exposed to smoke? Who's she trying to help? Herself? Her? Is this just planned to put people off? It's possible. Then about her son being sick, and then repairing the sofa, and then the police. You know, there's a gaping big gap from 4:40 till 4:40 a.m. to 6:54 p.m. So basically, we don't know at all what happened in this point in time. She starts talking about the burning carpet at 12:09 on the 27th, and then from then on it's very blurry until she types in today's flights from one place to another. Then it starts getting really pretty specific. I think this one is important. Can Nintendo find my Switch? 12:57 on the 28th at lunchtime. This has to be around the time something was going on. So I will do a chart for that time as well. But it's, you know, this shows such specificity that if they knew to put a GPS tracker on the car, I don't really understand why they didn't follow her, because it seems like they had a ton of information to go by. Anyway, so this to me shows me her intelligence. She's not very intelligent. There's hardly any capital letters. She doesn't know how to search Google. She doesn't know how to use it. She's using it for all the wrong reasons. And she spent 10.7 hours on Facebook and Messenger, so it just proves that she's really not very smart. She has Mercury in Virgo. She's cunning. It's in the second house. So if it's related to her self-worth or how she feels or money, then she gets pissed off, and that's shown by these red lines here, these really specific red lines. She has Uranus square Mercury. That's when someone can't speak very well. So when you can't speak very well, you're not very good at lying. Now this is a perfect example of Mercury square Uranus. Now, it's not always, because I actually have that aspect myself in a different sense. It comes out as stuttering and I lost my hearing, and that could be the same for her, I'm not sure. But I know how to do a Google search because I have all different placements in my chart. This lady doesn't. So it's not the same for everybody, that's what I'm trying to say. It's different for everyone, but in her charts in particular, in combination with this Google search, I can see that she's not very smart, and that she thought she was one step ahead of the police, but they were one step ahead of her, which is even worse knowing that they actually allowed Gannon to be trampled across the countryside in the back of a vehicle, in my opinion. The longer I think about it, the worse I think it is. I mean, I understand why they didn't find Gannon in the back of the car that night. They weren't looking for Gannon deceased, so there's no reason they would. But if they had followed her to one of the places, at least they could have intercepted her. You know, I would hope that they could have done that. And obviously we don't have all the documentation, but from the documentation that we do have, it appears as though and from what we know now, they let her go across to Florida and chuck Gannon into an alligator-infested river. I don't understand that, because they seem like they were right on top of it. So I think that everything is not what it seems with this case. Well, it shows to be true. It's definitely not what it seems, but I think even more so it's going to present itself as being something way out there. But I have to say that I think if we need to put a motive to it, my idea from seeing the charts, seeing this, seeing her chart, and seeing the combination chart of the candle incident and her natal chart, I believe that she was already thinking that someone's going to pay for how I feel, but she wasn't sure how. Gannon did something minor to do with this fire. That was her moment that she chose that everybody would be sorry. And then she dragged her other children into it. She tortured poor Gannon, because we don't even know what happened to him for an entire day. So she chose, I believe, the candle incident to get her revenge on Al and the other side of the family that weren't doing what she thought they should have been doing. And that is a shitty motive that is not good enough. There's never a good enough motive. But she could have just left. She had every choice in the world to just leave. But no, her natal chart shows us quite clearly that she's not the type of person that's just going to leave. She holds resentment, and her life is completely, her feeling of harmony is tied into her home life. And if this is altered in any way, it triggers off the mental side to then initiate Mars, which is anger, which then is people will pay. Now, I have to say as well that I think in the past she's exploded before. I don't think that this would be an anomaly to Al. I'm not blaming Al in any way, but I'm sure he would know what her nature was like and that there was a volatility there. And obviously he immediately suspected her of something. So I would say that she has shown tendencies of exploding before, and almost definitely showed jealousy and all of those types of things towards Al and in the home, and then projected it onto the children, in particular Gannon. Gannon was a good representation of Al, I believe, in her mind. And the trigger, which was the incident that she didn't want to have to deal with for some reason. She didn't want to look stupid. You know, she texted Al about this little fire. She was so concerned about this fire. You know, what was that going to do? Is it because it made her house look a bit wrong? You know, like, what was the big contributing factor in this fire? This candle that did it. I don't think it really was much. It was just, that's it. I have to explain myself. I'm sick of it. I'm not going to do it. And that's it. She killed him. So she is mentally ill, but she's also premeditative. She knew she was going to do something that someone would regret. And I believe that she possibly put Gannon through a whole day or more of hell because of it. Whatever she started to do, once it began, that was it. There was no stopping it. It was a complete roll-on effect. Like, it's happened now, well, I'm going for it, and I'll do more and more and more. And that's why it gets more hideous. Because now the true Letecia has come out, and there's no stopping her, because she's and this is the raw Letecia. It's just the Letecia that's been building up year after year after year, finally got triggered off by a bunch of external things, which were planets. These planets that began triggering off a lot of fear at the beginning of the year, and when this happened is the same as what Letecia has in her natal chart. It was a full triggered event, and I do believe that the candle was just the straw that broke the camel's back. But aside from that, she premeditatively did everything and deserves everything that comes to her. If she did it allegedly, because I have to say that, allegedly. Okay. So just a little prediction to add on to the end. This is Letecia Stauch, or Harden, whatever her last name is. This is her natal chart again. Because it is squaring Pluto and Saturn now, which would be out here if I had the chart here, just have to trust me that it is. When Saturn goes back to 29 degrees of Capricorn, which will be in July, where all the truth will come out and everything will inevitably lead to her spending the rest of her life in prison, because that's this area here. It will also be triggered to the Neptune. Neptune rules the 12th house, which is prison. But Saturn is authority, so the authority have got her. They've completely changed her life. She chose the wrong time to do something like this. Ganem was not going to let that happen, that's for sure. So I find it very interesting that she has a natal Pluto-Saturn conjunction, that it was triggered off by the one that we do have. And then I believe the end of the matter, which will be her in prison, will be reflective of an aspect with these two planets. Just to quickly cover it as well, she has a Leo sun. So she shows the perfect way how not to use a Leo sun. You can't get away with everything. You might think you're Leonian in nature, but if you've got a Virgo and Mercury squaring Uranus and a detrimental Neptune that makes you a mental case and turns you into an angry hose beast that wants to destroy families, it's all here in the chart. But it's definitely not based on the fact that she was singly a Leo. What else do we have here? Nothing really of interest. Nothing interests me of her. I can see why she did this. She's a selfish... I can summarise it. She's a selfish cow that wanted out to herself, didn't want the kids in the way, and someone was going to pay for how she felt if they didn't treat her like the queen that she felt she deserved to be treated like. So, easy to summarise. Alright, take care guys. See ya.